are again. It's always such a pleasure. Remember when you tried to kill me twice?
I'm Levi Weinhagen, and this is the Pratfalls Podcast, a show that features conversations with people about the creative stuff they make and how it interacts with the rest of their lives. The song that you can hear right now is Want You Gone by the amazing Jonathan Colton. Go look him up online, buy all of his songs. He is seriously fantastic. So I'm a couple episodes into the new version of the Pratfalls Podcast, and I'm really curious about what you guys think. I would love to hear back from you. You can tweet me at @thatlevi. Are you enjoying the show? Are there guests you'd love me to reach out to? I will reach out to any interesting creative person, so if you're like, wow, I'd love to hear this person interviewed, but they probably say no to you, let me know. I'll try it. Also, you can rate and review the show on iTunes. That really helps other people see that the show exists, and it makes me feel happy and good. So go on iTunes and say, this show's really fun, or that guy's weird, or I like applesauce. It can be a non sequitur. iTunes doesn't care. So please, let's get some feedback. Enough about that. This is my conversation with Jeff Lynn. He is founder of Bust Out Solutions. He's also done a bunch of other things. He develops apps and web technology. He has also participated in the PBS show Colonial House. He's got children. He's just a really interesting and thoughtful guy, and I was really excited to get to talk to him, and I think you guys will enjoy the conversation. So here's my talk with Jeff. All right, are you cool for me to just start asking you questions?
Sure, yeah. We got no agenda, I'm not prepared for anything, so.
Good, well then you're prepared for everything.
All right.
So, I always start by saying the name. You're Jeff Lynn.
Yep.
And that one I feel good about the pronunciation.
Yeah.
Like I'm not too scared of. And then I'll try to describe my understanding of your work, and then you can tell me how wrong I was.
Sure.
About But so you're is it just founder of Bust Out Solutions?
Yep.
And then you also co-founded the Smart Factory?
Yes.
The educational, and we can get into that a little bit. So from what I gather from hearing you talk and following your work is you develop web and mobile applications.
Yep.
And that can be kind of all over the map, what those actually are.
Yeah, and it is all over the map.
Yeah.
So we don't have a particular niche of an industry. We do really any kind of custom design and development of web and mobile. And so our official marketing tagline is "You dream it, we build it," and it kind of came out of like just internally trying to describe what we do. And one of my designers just kind of came up with that line. I'm like, that pretty much just describes it. So
is there an element of that? Maybe I've hoisted this upon your work, but of you like the idea of someone coming to you with something that seems hard to pull off more than just because I don't know how many app developers there are in the world. Mm-hmm. Lots. It seems like it's a lot of people think they can hang the shingle and do it. Mm-hmm. But the sort of aesthetic I get from Bust Out is you would like to be challenged by the
Yes.
idea someone has.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have taken some projects on where we agree to do it and we have no idea how to do it. And I'd say early on that kind of frightened me a little bit, but as the company and the team matured, I think that's really what excited us, was the fact that a client could come to us and say, I've got this idea, and here's the idea, can you do it? And our honest answer is, well, we don't know how to do it, but yes, we can do it. And there's been a few projects where we've taken on where like some other companies have dropped out because they said, we don't know how to do it. It's impossible, or it's just not possible with our staff. And we said, well, we don't know how to do it either, but we'll do it. And it's worked out. And a lot of it, most of it is due to or I should say all of it is due to the level of talent on the team. So
I'm curious though that, since it's the company you started, typically the guts of a company like that are similar to the guts of the person. So do you have a thing where is it intrinsic to you where you'll say, I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to try in the rest of your life too?
Maybe. And I think if it's it's either that attitude or that stupidity. I don't know which one.
Yeah, do you like being in over your head? I think is maybe the question. Or can you not avoid being?
I can't avoid it. I've gotten into things where like I start getting into it. I'm like, why am I doing this? This is ridiculous. And then by the time I'm like in it, I'm like, this is awesome because I'm not doing something that I thought I'd be doing. Well, for one, starting the business, I never thought I'd do it, and then one day I just all of a sudden had a company. So a lot of it is like sometimes I make decisions that I don't feel are very well thought through.
Perfect thing for a CEO to say.
Yeah, but by the time the decision's been made and I'm like down a path, I look back and I go, actually, maybe I like subconsciously thought it through, or like sometimes I feel like I'm having a conversation with myself, where a decision is made, and my conscious brain says that's a bad decision, but then my subconscious brain says, let's do this, and then later on I look back and I go, somehow I knew that was the right decision. Don't know how, but it was.
See, that really, to me, that I'm primarily a writer, sort of how I think, but the writers I know and have talked to, that sounds very similar to those moments when I don't know why this character said this or this thing happened, because you're not really aware of how much subconscious processing you're doing all the time.
Yeah.
Like, does that feel sort of resonant?
Yeah. And I think it actually started in probably around my late teens, like high school, early college, where I was doing a bunch of things that I'd never done before, like legal things.
Yeah. Lots of people do those things in their late teens.
Yeah. Like, for example, like just playing music, where I'm like, oh, I have no idea if I can play this song, and then I just like, it's almost like there's just a lack of fear with a bunch of like, there's just some carelessness and some adventure built in, but being able to get up on stage and play some music with a group, like a band or something, and not even know if it's going to work out. But then if it actually works out, you're like, oh, that was awesome. And then you kind of build upon that, and you have this, just a sense of adventure, of trying things that you've never done before.
Well, so I want to go back a little bit to maybe where, I don't know if it's a nature-nurture argument or what, but like where the idea of risk-taking being okay or not worrying about the results. Like, I don't know if you can trace that to, was that a cultural thing that you saw?
So I thought about that, and for years I thought that I was kind of weird in my family, because my parents when I was growing up, they seemed very like conservative from a risk standpoint. They always had a steady job. They never, did anything crazy. My sister as well, she went to college, went to grad school, got a job, got married, had kids, like kind of did the expected path. Not that I'm going totally off, on a crazy path or anything. And so I would always think like, I'm like this crazy risk taker in the family, compared to my family. Not compared to the general world, but
it's all a spectrum.
Yeah. And then one day I was just thinking about it. I'm like, wait a minute. My parents left their country when they were in their 20s, and they came to this totally foreign land and basically like set up shop in a foreign country. I'm like, I've never done anything that adventurous.
Yeah, that's a big risk.
That's a huge risk. I'm like, oh, I guess my parents are huge risk takers.
Yeah.
And so that kind of put it all into perspective when I, actually like thought about it.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I don't have that experience, but it really seems like that sort of immigrant idea, anything you do after that is still based in risk.
Yeah.
Like, as much as you try to build stability, I think if you look back, you still see like it's all built on the idea of,
we did this. Like they made a huge baller move and just like left their comfort zone. And like my wife and I we're kind of in the market for a new house, and like we're having a hard time picturing us moving out of our general neighborhood. Like we love the neighborhood, let's just stay here.
Yeah.
Like let alone like, why don't we move to Peru.
Yeah. What if the language and the roads and the government, all of it was different?
Yeah.
That seems like paralyzing to think about.
Yeah, and when you grow up, like I was born and raised in Ohio, and so that's kind of all I knew. Is for as long as I've lived, my parents have been in Ohio. But then once you become a little bit more mature, having conversations with my parents about like, what was it like just deciding to leave home and leave your country and raise a family halfway around the world from your parents. It's kind of daunting. Like, my wife's parents spend half the year 3 miles away from us. And winter's in Arizona, but during the summer, they're literally like across Lake Calhoun from us, and it's like, whoa, they're so far away. We only get to see them twice a week.
Yeah.
And my parents are still in Ohio, but
but how often did you see grandparents? Like growing up in Ohio, I wonder. That's
not very often.
Yeah.
My dad's parents basically lived out their lives in Taiwan still.
The Atlantic is bigger than Lake Calhoun.
Right.
Just
right.
The math makes it harder. I'm curious if you even, I don't know, were you thinking of technology when you were young? Was that something you were already excited about?
I was actually very interested in science. I think like a lot of kids,
Was there a specific area? Were you physics, chemistry, biology?
It was kind of
the whole thing.
Kind of the whole thing. Just I loved doing little experiments in school and exploring the garden and the woods and then in college I kind of honed in on life sciences. So I was a biology major. I thought at one point I wanted to be a doctor, but then I actually spent time with doctors and I was like, screw that.
What was it the temperament of a doctor, or was it the?
It was kind of the nature of the work.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I shadowed some doctors, and granted, I got a very small glimpse of the whole industry. But I shadowed a surgeon, which was really cool until about 2 hours into it. I'm like, all right, this again. Cut someone open, fix them up, sew them up, And so that was during college, and then I realized that
I love the idea that you reject surgery because it's so predictable.
Yeah, it's the same stuff. It was actually an orthopedic surgeon, and he was doing knee replacements, hip replacements, shoulder replacements. So I saw all these replacements, and at the end of the day, he goes, honestly, I could have given you the tools, and you could have, some training. You could have done it. Take a carpenter, they can replace the knee. And that's a vast oversimplification.
No, that's a new reality show for sure.
Yeah.
We gave this carpenter 3 hours of training,
and he replaced the knee.
And it just looks like a house.
Yeah. So then I kind of got more interested in basic science research, which was really diving into the unknowns. So, human disease research was very interesting to me. All right, people have Huntington's disease. What causes it? And what can we do to fix it?
Yeah, the genetic markers even for...
Yeah.
Do I have this? Am I more at risk? Is this?
Yeah.
The Huntington's, that's so familial like that.
Yep.
I could see that research being really compelling.
Yeah, so I got really interested in that, and the plan was to do that for a living. And then I just kind of got sidetracked after college, and here I am running a software company.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
Well, do you still do a fair amount of research, whether it's formalized or not, in your work? Do you feel like you get to do some of that refreshing and looking for new ideas, things you would have been able to do if you did science research for a living? In
a different way, but it's kind of the same mindset where you're basically trying to solve a problem. So with science, it's there's a problem and you have ideas of what causes the problem or what might solve the problem, and then you start testing, experimenting to see if your hypothesis is right. And then with software design, it's a very different approach, but I'd say the gist of it is the same. We're designing an app. We know what it needs to do. but there's infinite ways that you could design it. So, we always believe that there is a right design.
Right.
So what is that right design? We have to find it. We have to create that correct design. Or there might be a few correct ways to do it, but you can always test it.
Yeah.
You design it one way.
Stuff.
Yeah. Design it one way, design it another way, and test it. If you're building an app that's going to be used by millions of people, that's a very different way of testing than if you're going to build an app that's going to be used internally at a company. So even the testing aspect is every project is different. Every product that we're building is different. So from that respect, it kind of keeps us on our toes. It keeps me interested.
But you can apply the scientific method in a lot of ways to
very much so. Yeah.
App development, which I like that idea. That.
And it's not just the app development. It's also the design aspect. So a lot of people think design is just this look and feel,
color palette
and fonts. You can actually break it down and into a very right and wrong, kind of technical design approach. And we use a lot of tools that help us do that. So ways of actually testing scientifically how a design works or doesn't work.
Well, so I'm really curious. I think this connects to that, but the idea of user interface is a thing people who work in technology talk and think about, but I do think I don't know how much it's a stereotype or not, but the idea that a lot of folks doing back-end development are distant from the user experience and from sort of being human connectors. I think for a long time there was viewed as this pool of, these are the tech people, they're awkward. These are the human people. Yeah. They are socially skilled, but they maybe don't know how to do the back end. And there's always this look for someone who can meld those two things.
Right.
The way you use Twitter, you like to talk about technology, but you also like to talk about some art performance you went and saw.
Yeah.
Or some meal.
Yep.
And those are very human descriptions. But it seems like you even try to bring that a lot to the technology end, not only your work, but just in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wonder if did you have to learn one skill, or do you feel like you were equipped in that way? Is that intentional for you, or is it just coincidental? It's
definitely intentional. So I spent a lot of years writing software as a software developer myself, and was always kind of disturbed by the lack of attention that that the team I was on that we put on the human interface, just because that's the way that the company worked. It wasn't a priority. But the second you build software that solves really complex technical problems without thinking about how a human's going to interact with it, you just have a piece of technology that really works well, does something amazing that people hate. And that's a problem.
Right.
And so what I wanted to do when I started Bust Out was to sort of fix that and say, all right, there's no reason why you can't build amazing software and have people really like using it. And that's the design aspect,
That's more work.
Yeah. But what you said is true. I think they're actually, I hate to say this, but I think there are a lot of programmers who are just disconnected from human reality, where they can solve amazing technical problems that two people in the world care about. And when you're building consumer software or even any kind of software that a person's going to interact with, you got to consider that human interface. And so pretty much everyone on our team crosses those boundaries between the hardcore programmer, technical person to the user experience, user interface designer. Kind of the way I like to just summarize it is, everyone on the team writes code, but we also talk like real people.
Yeah, I think it's avoided in a lot of ways because the human factor does make everything way frustratingly challenging. I mean, it can be interesting challenges too, but I think it's maybe easier to just, and we'll deal with that later, or we'll put a layer of skin on it that makes it seem like it's user-friendly.
Right.
But you go one step in and it's
things fall apart.
Confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, software is this amazingly complex process that I like to call it it's kind of the true liberal art. So there's basically everything that I can think of that I learned in college, which is not much. I went to liberal arts school, where
you're supposed to learn how to learn.
You learn,
not so much
exactly.
To learn.
What I like to say, someone told me once, it's where you learn a little bit about everything and a lot about nothing, which it's kind of true. But when you're building an app, there's design. There's obviously the technical aspect. Writing code that takes technical logic, computers, all that stuff. But then there's writing, just words.
Right.
Then there's design. There's the experience, the human interface.
It's like psychology.
There's psychology involved. There's writing. There's science. There's math. There's everything, crammed into one piece of software. And the hardest part about it is when you build an app that looks really, really clean and simple. Those are the ones that are the hardest to make. So when you see something like Microsoft Word, where there's a billion things that you can do, and there's buttons and icons everywhere. It looks like it's so I'm sure it is pretty sophisticated.
A child could make that.
Yeah. But it's all right, it's easier to just cram crap on the screen than it is to make something really elegant.
Well, they didn't make decisions about what to strip away or what.
Right.
Yeah. Are there specific tools, current or from the past, that you look at as that's sort of beautiful in its simplicity, the way that it functions?
Yeah.
And then now you can just list everything you've worked on.
Right, yeah. Every project we've ever done.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, no, there's definitely, we're always looking at other people's work, other companies, other teams, because it's kind of fun, but it's also inspiring. So there's definitely, apps that we see that we're that there's something about it that is just amazing. For example, Slack, which is a very widely used tool right now. We use that quite a bit. And when you think about it, that technology has basically been around ever since the internet has, for decades.
Yeah, it's just communication and sharing.
It's just, you're just typing words and sending words to someone else. So that's been around for a very long time. But there's something about the interface, the way that it was designed, where it's, and also obviously the way it's marketed and presented to the public. But
it's very human centered, or at least it's sort of it's framed that way.
And so we kind of did I was talking with a couple of my developers. I'm like, what is it about Slack that is just so much better than anything else we've ever used? Because we've used a dozen of these communication tools over the years, and one of my developers, Paul, kind of summed it up. He said, well, there's no answer to that. There's no one thing, there's no one thing that makes it better. There's multiple small right decisions. And when you add those up, it becomes a product that, you can't describe why it's right, but it is.
It's like a good meal.
Yeah.
It's not just because there's more garlic in here than
right. There's a lot of things that go into it, and you can't pinpoint what makes it better. You say the same thing about food or music or a movie.
Theater, that's
theater,
my go-to is a bunch of things have to go the right way.
Yeah.
For it even to just not be horrible.
Right.
And for it to be good, it has to be a bunch of weird decisions that you're not sure about.
Right.
I'm curious about, because of the work you do, so you're embedded in this work all the time, and that means, I imagine this work suits the way your brain already works, and that's why you would do it. But I'm curious about the other parts of your life. If you find yourself thinking about decisions in life as just ways to sort of solve problems, there's a couple of game developers I know who can't help but, if they're standing in a line, they think about the game mechanics of what's happening in that line and whether it's been done properly, how they would tweak it to make it more effective for people experiencing it. Do you do some of that out in the world?
I do that all the time, and sometimes I bug myself.
Because you can't just be in a moment.
Right. And I know I bug my wife as well, because I'm always like trying to solve a problem and figure out. And problem is such a broad word. Like, I'm always trying to think about.
The problem is like, what do I want for lunch? Like, that's a problem that you have to solve.
Right. But yeah, just even things like in the house, like, our clothes are washer and dryer in the basement. We live upstairs, and I always thought, I know a lot of new houses have this. I'm like, why can't we just put the washer and dryer upstairs? And brilliant.
Yeah. It's the best. I had that at my old. We moved and we don't have it anymore. And it was so good. I never knew.
Yeah, I mean things like that. It's like, all right, can you optimize the way that you just live your life? And so I'm always kind of tooling around with those ideas in my head, and sometimes like I said, sometimes I bug myself. I'm like, just stop thinking about it, and
Yeah, well, are you able to let it go? I mean, what does that look like in your brain where that's something like that is happening? I don't know, is it meditative where you have to just let it pass through? Or
it's not like a bad thing. I mean,
but it can be
funny. Yeah, it's like, I don't know. Like here's an example. The other day I was surfing the web at home, and I think I was just shopping. I was shopping for something, and I was on the laptop, and my wife Sarah said, "Are you working?" And right at that moment, I happened to be looking at the source code of that website that I was on, just because they did something kind of cool. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of neat. How does that work? And so I was just like studying the source code.
Yeah.
And she thought I was working. I'm like, no, I'm not working. She goes, that looks like work to me. I'm like, well, I'm reading the source code of this website. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I do for work, and that's what I'm doing right now because I think it's fun and interesting.
Just because you love your work. So it's what you also do.
Yeah, or even, like, I don't even know what work is and isn't.
Yeah.
Was that beneficial to my job? Probably. Was I just doing it because it was fun? Yeah. So.
Well, is there especially because you run your own company, are there even just time challenges do you have to decide, do you set hours where you are and are not working, or do you try to, let's say.
I have set hours when I'm here in the office.
Right.
So it's a typical 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. But that really, it kind of came about when I had kids. So it's impossible to get work done when I'm home with the kids.
Well, how old are they?
Josephine is 3.5 and William's 2.
So yeah, in those ages you can't do anything.
Can't do anything, yeah. And we have a third on the way.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks. So I totally come here to the office to relax and just have no parenting responsibilities here. So in that sense, it's put a little bit of structure to my day. But before that, it was really kind of. I used to always be a big proponent of working when you're inspired. That creates challenges when you're working with a team and with clients. But
wake up, everyone! I'm inspired.
So there's a balance there. You can't just work whenever. But at the same time, if you're really inspired in a moment, you should dive in and take advantage of that. So I do a little less of that now just because of reality.
Yeah. Well, so there's 3 different things you touched on that I'm interested in, but do you find then partially the family pressure, but also just because you have some set hours, the idea of working when I'm inspired is lovely and romantic, but also reality doesn't care about that. So do you think you're able to be more productive because you've put in some restrictions, or your life has, than before? Yeah,
definitely more efficient. And I use this analogy all the time. When I was in college, I played soccer on the college soccer team. And my grades were always best during the soccer season because there was so much time that had to be dedicated to the sport that your study time was very limited and very structured. So when I had 3 hours to get my studies done, I would sit down for 3 hours and I would focus and get it done because I knew there was no other option. And then once the season was over in the next semester, I'm like, look at all this time, let's go play pool. Let's go. And then my grades would be worse. Yeah. So, and it's kind of the same now where, I don't have 24 hours to myself anymore. It's really, half my days taking care of the kids and the family. And so my work time I have less work time, so I really try and focus a little bit more and get more structured. Doesn't always work, but it's the same kind of time constraints are there as when I played soccer.
Yeah, I totally have a thing where I want more than I can actually do on my plate, because then I'll do more.
Yep.
Than when I have a realistic workload or just shy of that.
Yeah.
I don't get it done.
Yeah.
And I don't really. It seems like it's a weird sort of psychology trick you're playing.
I wonder if it's just a human thing or if it's, I don't know, certain people, but yeah, I feel it's a lot of people on my team are the same way. Like when we're slammed with work, we do work better.
Yeah.
And when there's like, oh, hey, you can take some time and relax because we're in between projects or whatever, then it doesn't go as well as you think it should.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's even worth trying to figure out how to make that happen. Because maybe you'd burn everyone out if you try
I don't know.
to keep that always going.
Right.
Do you find you strategize? Your kids are pretty young, but ways to engage with them or connect with them that feel similar to solving sort of creative developer problems? Do you see any correlation there?
There's some. I'll put it this way. I've been trying to figure out ways, especially with Josephine, because she's a little toddler. She's almost 4.
She has opinions.
She has opinions. She can talk. William is still just kind of screaming at me and babbling. But Josephine is she's like a real human. So I try and come up with ways to interact with her where I feel like I'm also engaged and learning and interested in what we're doing. So one thing is I've always wanted to play the piano, and my sister played the piano, and I tried piano lessons a few times in my life, and it just never worked out. Something about the piano that I don't get. So I have 2 pianos now, or 2 little electronic keyboards in the house, and I'm always trying to get her to sit down and play, and we play together, sort of dueling pianos. So, one, because I think it might be cool if she played the piano. If she likes it, she can try it. But 2, it's I want to get better at it too. So I don't know if it's it's not solving a problem, but it's scratching an itch.
Well, and then you can feel like you're learning piano and parenting, and
right.
You get to tick 2 boxes at
right.
the same time.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
That's always the goal.
Yeah.
How many objectives can all fit under this?
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents of young kids probably have this similar scenario as me, but I'm tired a lot, so I don't exercise,
mm-hmm.
and being mostly, spent most of my life playing sports and being healthy, and I feel like I'm just like a slob. So in the summertime, when not now because it's the dead of winter, but
terrible, yeah.
I'd take the kids to the playground, and we'd spend 2 hours, and I'd be running all around the playground just like all the other kids. And a couple parents, I've gotten a couple dirty looks from parents because
you're probably making them feel bad.
Well, I'm flipping upside down on the monkey bars, and their kids are wanting to try it, and don't do what that man's doing. But yeah, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Take my kids to the playground, and I get some exercise too. So.
Yeah, that's a whole book right there.
Yeah,
the dad workout.
Right. Yeah.
Just it's all based on playground equipment.
Yeah.
And doing moves.
I think there's something there.
Yeah. You design the app so people can, purchase weekly updates on what to.
Right.
It'll have some, in-app purchase.
Actually, that's not a bad idea.
Possibility.
I wonder if it's.
It's got to exist.
It's got something.
Someone's done that already.
Yeah, take your kid to the playground and get your workout in.
Yeah. I definitely, I did it when it was usually quieter, but especially when I was like largely a stay-at-home dad with my 1 and 2 year old, I was like, doing pull-ups at the the monkey bars while she was playing, but I'd always feel like, okay, there's only like 2 moms here. I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna call the police or something on whatever weird behavior that's going on.
Yeah.
But to me, that's just creative problem solving. Like that's the same thing.
It's also just it's fun. Like I used to take my kids to the playground, and then when Josephine was young, so when I was a new dad, never done this before, like take my kid to the playground, and then you just worry that they're gonna fall and hurt themselves. And then I got just tired of being worried, and I'm like, wait, I'm turning into that parent, that parent that just like follows their kid. Like you see these parents all the time at like the zoo or at the children's museum, where they're literally 2 steps behind their kid all the time. And I've seen parents like carrying around like the hand sanitizer spray.
Yeah.
And like every 2 minutes they're like, give me your hands. I'm like, spray. Oh, you touched that bar, spray. I'm like, that
kid's gonna die as soon as they get out into the
So with
world.
Josephine, when she was young, I would take her to the playground and I just follow her around and worry all the time. And then I got tired of that. I'm like, wait, what am I worried about? And I think the best thing that happened was when she like clocked her head once on a just a metal bar and got this huge welt on her head, and then kept playing.
Right.
Cried for like 2 minutes and then kept playing. And I was like, wait, she can get hurt. She can get hurt.
Yeah.
So now, it's a lot more relaxing because I can just like play with them instead of follow them around.
Do you think that translates to? I mean, you are in a leadership role, and a lot of what you're describing, I totally had that early, like helicopter-y. I was carrying an umbrella for the sun over my infant's head, and people were making fun of me, and I was like, but
UV rays?
90% of skin cancer happens before you're 18. I read the research, and they're like, but still, I want to punch you in the face. But that is micromanaging. That's what you're. I mean, that's what that is. And then if we don't let them fail, they won't learn. They won't develop their own strategies for existing in the world.
Right.
Do you feel like you've taken lessons like that into how you manage the designers and developers that you work with?
You're assuming I manage.
Yeah. You don't helicopter your staff?
No. But part of that is, just part of that is due to the fact that we're a distributed team.
Right. They're not around you physically that much.
They're not always physically around.
Was that intentional? And part of that sort of having the vast majority of your staff is remote, right?
About half. Yeah.
Is it to keep them not vast? Shouldn't have said vast. To let them sort of do their own work at their own pace. That's
not the reason. The reason for the reason why they're remote is because they were hired for their skill and not for their location.
It's important for a lot of organizations to think about that idea.
Yeah. Huh.
Are you buying my body or my mind?
Right. But I'd find people who have like just incredible talent, and then I don't care where they live. Like put it this way: you can have that incredible talent, but you also have to have they also have the ability to work independently.
Right.
And
they'll do stuff.
Yeah. You could be the most amazing designer or programmer, but if you're a jackass, you're like, I'm not going to work with you, no matter where you are.
I don't know if it's embedded in the mission, but there's that no assholes, no dummies or dumbasses.
No dumbasses, no assholes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like your employing policy here.
It is. It really is. And it kind of applies to clients as well. And
how do you vet that from a client, though? Is it just feel?
I mean, you have to feel like you're going to work. We become part of our clients' teams. Put it that way. So it's not just you pay me money and we do this work. We're not just like, software whores.
It's a great name for a company, though.
Yeah, software whores. You pay us, you finish that.
Yeah, there's lots of endings.
But we're going to be working with our
happy
clients.
ending. We'll get you your happy ending.
Well, your happy
you
ending.
pay us.
So you definitely have to feel like, all right, these are people that I definitely want to work with, not work for.
Right.
And it's the same thing with bringing someone onto the Bust Out team. It's someone I want to work with. I don't want them to work for me. I want me to work with them.
It's more collaborative.
Yeah. We did one pitch once where we sent in this great proposal, and they said, you forgot the corporate org chart. I'm like, org chart? Like, we need to see a corporate hierarchy. I'm like, well, we don't have a chart like that. And like, well, it's in the RFP. We need to see it. That's what I did. Literally, I wrote everyone's name down on a piece of paper and I drew a line across, and I sent that to them, and we didn't get the job.
No. Yeah, that's interesting. That seems like an old way of thinking.
Yeah, and a lot of companies still operate that way. I mean, a lot of companies, they don't understand the remote team, and I think that's loosening up a little bit now. But we've been doing this for over a decade with a distributed team, and to some it seems to be a big deal, but to us it's kind of like normal.
Yeah, I wonder if the sort of tech side of business is ahead on that idea, because it's so clearly viewed as that work can happen all over the place, like more than like a marketing company or something, which I think still could. But
yeah, I think a lot of companies could work distributed.
Yeah,
regardless of the industry. FaceTime is always really nice, though. Like, you don't want to just completely replace a face-to-face team with remote headless workers, but
especially headless workers.
Yeah.
It's a real challenge. Well, I am curious about the Smart Factory project that you start, which I know is sort of a school or an education place for already experienced coders and developers, and but as a way of making sure there's enough good people to work with and employ. Right? I think that was sort of the core idea of that.
Kind of. I mean, I guess the core idea was that Mike, my co-founder, and I, we both have an interest in teaching and education and kind of like helping.
Because you've been a professor or a adjunct professor before?
At Hennepin Technical College. And just being able to take the expertise that we have in we'll call this our day jobs. Mike runs a company called Livefront, and they do web and mobile design and development as well. And so you have a lot of expertise in the work. So why not share that with other people? So that was kind of that's the basic kind of a basic summary of why we started Smart Factory. And originally it was geared towards people who are experienced software developers. Let's say you're a Java developer, you've been doing it for 15 years, but now you want to build an iPhone app. So we ran a class in iOS development. So it was geared towards that type of person. But we've kind of changed it a little bit, and now we run a lot of shorter workshops that can be open to almost anybody. For example, we ran one last year called Fundraising Hacks, which was basically if you're interested in being an entrepreneur and you need some funding, some investment money, how do you get it? And so it's not, we were kind of tech focused, but someone who wanted to start
it would apply to other startup ideas.
It would apply to any startup, yeah. If you're an entrepreneur and you have a business idea and you need money, how do you get it?
So I get the education piece, and that makes, it all makes sense to me. But what I'm curious about is this way of thinking. So you and Livefront, that could easily be competitors.
Yeah.
And then you're also like helping build other competitors in your field.
Yeah.
I tend to view, I'm not a huge fan of dichotomies, but I do tend to think people traditionally think of the sort of abundance or scarcity kind of ideas. And I'm curious about how top of mind or how aware you are of like putting out, helping other people learn how to fund their new potentially tech startup in the same city, in the same field that you're already working in, and you have 2 and almost 3 children to pay for food and lodging, and like you know, your livelihood is based in having clients and making this work happen. And so for you, what's the thinking, you know, reciprocally, you know, because you know, there can be altruism and that's great, but how do you think about investing in the greater community of entrepreneurs and people who do tech?
Sure.
Like, how does it serve you? Do you think about how it serves you? Do you not care? You just want to be doing good in the world?
It's not. I wish it was.
Are you a
that,
hero?
Yeah. I wish it was just totally altruistic, because that sounds great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not. I mean, it's not like I'm just here to, you know, do this amazing mission of like teaching everyone, because you know, not that capable. But but yeah, for example, with Livefront, you know, Mike and I, we've been friends and colleagues for years, and we do our companies do the same thing. So I guess by the book we're competitors, but we have done more collaboration over the years than we've competed. And in fact, it's almost nice to have another company that's similar, because a lot of times we'll be swamped with work, and we'll say, "Hey, there's this project that we just got, but we can't get it done. Can you lend us? Can we basically bring one of your guys on our staff for a short period of time?" And vice versa. So you know, we've helped each other out quite a bit over the years. And then in terms of like teaching the potential competitors through Smart Factory, there's a couple things there. One is there's an abundance of work in this field, and so even if we train up a lot of people, it doesn't mean that all of a sudden the work's going to dry up. Obviously tech is a huge industry, and there's plenty of work in the world in tech. So I don't think we're going to run out of opportunities. But then second, there is a little bit of confidence and maybe cockiness there that we can teach you how to do this, but you're still not going to be as good as my team.
Is that how you open every workshop?
Yeah. You're going to build an iPhone app, but nowhere close to being as good as what my team can do. So don't even think about it. But no, truthfully, there's some of that there where like we're going to train you, but we've been doing this so much longer that's the reason why, you know, Paul is teaching iOS, is because he's one of the most experienced guys in the whole Twin Cities, and you're going to learn from the master. But if we can train more people, you know, it'd be great if we could actually train someone and then have them join our team someday. Like, all right, you're excelling at building this, and you're to a point where I want you on my team.
Well, it also seems like part of the investment of Smart Factory and other teaching you do is, if the Twin Cities is viewed as a hub of great design and development, and you're one of the companies leading the charge in this city that's reputation is growing, that still helps you guys, even if it helps other people as well.
Right. Yep. Yeah, there's a PR element to it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, not even in a sort of underhanded, sneaky marketing way, but like that's just smart business thinking too. Like I've my little theater company, and I do writing and theater projects, but I will like help anyone. I will go teach a workshop at a writing conference or something, and mostly I think if we make more good people making good theater, then we have more good theater audience to go see my shows.
Yeah.
Like there's no downside to me.
Right.
Other people make good work. I can't make every day.
Right.
I can't have a show on stage every day, but I want to keep that audience hungry for more stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's not at all altruistic for me. It's totally strategic.
Yeah.
Like I want good stuff, so that
it helps you in the long run.
Yeah, and then people just are used to good stuff all the time. Like, to me, that's
right.
Clear and obvious.
It's also just more fun.
It is more fun, yeah.
Like,
because you learn a ton of stuff by trying to teach someone else, because they have all these new weird ideas that you don't even know what habits you have.
Right.
And then someone's like, "Have you thought of this?" And you're like, "No, I'm going to write that down now and steal from you while I teach you something." Do you find? I mean, how much have you noticed a magnified pressure of? I don't know if it's just money, but of the finances with almost 4 years into fatherhood. That it seems obvious, but it's not like you didn't care before. You're like, yeah, maybe the business will work out, maybe not.
Yeah.
But has that changed for you?
Yeah.
And changed your awareness of the people who work for you as well, like that. They have lives that survive based on this generating work as well.
Yeah, and it's definitely changed for me personally, because now that we have 2 kids in preschool, there's that monthly bill, and then there's all you think, oh, my kid's going to go to college someday, and how do I pay for that, and
how many scholarships will there be?
Yeah. So I did the math once.
Scary. Why would you do that?
I know. I wish I didn't. But yeah, I did the math, and so I went to Carleton College, which they have kind of a ridiculous tuition.
It's not cheap.
It's not cheap. But if my kids were to go to Carleton, you project out the tuition. When they're 18, how much is tuition going to be? And if they were to pay full price, which they probably won't, but if they were to pay full price, how much do I need to start saving today? And it was like $2,500 per kid. I think it was not 20. I think it was $1,500 per kid per month.
Nice. Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute, that's not worth it. They should just drop out and start a tech company.
Yeah. Self-taught somehow.
Yeah. But yeah, I never thought about money in those terms until I had kids. So now it's like, all right, got to make sure that we can afford school and food and.
Do you think it affects your business decisions, even on a sort of unawares kind of?
Probably. Way? I don't think I've thought of it in that way, but it probably does in the subconscious way.
Because I think that can affect even the risk taking ideas. Like you're not sure about this project.
Yeah. Although not this year, last year.
You've already said you don't think that far. You're just like, I'll just say yes and figure it out later. So,
yeah, I still think that I've made decisions that I'm like, all right, this feels good. So, in fact, those are some of the best, the wisest words of advice I ever got was from a manager of mine at my previous employer, where I was a junior programmer, and I was like, should I do it like this? Should I do it like this? And he said, if it feels good, do it. I'm like, wait a minute, those are words to live by.
So is that what you'll teach your children?
Yeah.
It's like hedonistic life.
Right. Yeah.
That's about trusting your gut, right? I think.
Yeah, it's about trusting your gut, and first learning that you can trust your gut, and that, I don't know, if your gut instinct is always wrong and you keep getting screwed, then maybe,
have a friend with a good gut.
Right. But for more often than not, I think my gut decisions have been closer to the right side than the wrong side.
Yeah. Well, so we've been talking for a while, and maybe sort of a moving toward close kind of question. I am curious if you've noticed, both in now having run your own business for a while and in being a dad, how has it changed the way you think about and interact with your folks? Like, both, you've had this realization of them being the sort of risk takers in their 20s, their parents, they've made their own things go from just, tenacity and hard work. Have you noticed that evolving like, what is that like?
Well, what's awesome is, so my mom is a retired accountant. She was the controller of Oberlin College, so she was kind of like their head accountant.
Nice.
And she
can run those college numbers for you.
Yeah. Oh, trust me, she has. But what's fun about that is now that she's retired, she actually does the bookkeeping for the business, for my business. So she knows all the numbers. She knows money in, money out, and how we're doing. She's essentially our CFO.
So you can't keep anything from
I can't keep anything from her.
What's all this travel?
Yeah. But just a couple weeks ago, between Christmas and New Year, the school was closed, so kids were home. And my wife still had to work that week, so I was the primary parent for about 8 or 9 days. So I wasn't working much, spending some time with my kids. And I got a message from my mom that said, "It's great that you're spending time with your kids, but you need to make some money."
That was not Grandma sending you that message. That was
my mom.
Your CFO.
Yeah, that's
right,
my CFO.
But that she was, different hat.
Yeah. So yeah, it is. It's kind of, and my parents are very excited to be grandparents. So they love, we FaceTime with them all the time. And
are they in Ohio?
They're in Ohio, and they've been here twice. They were here twice last year, and they're coming again in March. So it's great having them around, but then at the same time, it's like my mom is intimately involved with with the business as well. So it's kind of fun, like having the grandma around my kids, but then also having the board meeting.
Yeah.
And being able to like talk shop with my mom.
Yeah. So it really then makes it feel like a family business too, like that.
Yeah.
That feeling.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. Well, that's fantastic. I know you're Jeff Lynn on Twitter.
Yep.
And you're regularly doing a varied mix of things on there. Where else would you point people to see bust out stuff or whatever else that you're working on?
So bust.solutions.com is our main website where you can learn more about us. But I'm pretty active. I guess I'm not, compared to a lot of people, I'm not that active, but I look at Twitter at least once a day. And I enjoy connecting with people over Twitter. So Jeff Lynn.
Well, and I saw you, you do a thing every once in a while, I think you posted recently, retweet this and I owe you a drink or a coffee.
Yeah.
You like to make it into a human connection.
I tried that because I saw someone else do that, and I thought it was kind of neat.
Did people retweet it? Did you
No.
Well, I'm going to do a call to action for everyone to go back in time and find it.
Two guys retweeted it that I know. I'm like, all right, thanks. Were you just trying to help me out, or do you actually want to get coffee?
Right. I just feel bad for you.
Right.
Oh, poor Jeff. All right.
Yeah. But I almost anywhere on the internet, I'm Jeff Lynn, Jefflin. I try and squat on that. And through that endeavor, I've actually connected with a bunch of other Jeff Lynns in the world.
Oh, wow.
Where I'm like, because I own JeffLynn.net. There's a Jeff Lynn in Connecticut that owns .com. And I'm Jeff Lynn on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and
with all those other Jeff Lynns being jealous of you for.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Jeff Style, who's a Jeff Lynn in San Francisco, asked if he could have my Twitter handle. I'm like, nope.
No, I'm using this.
But I kind of I've connected with about 6 or 7 other Jeff Lynns around the country and around the world, and I was thinking that we should have a Jeff Lynn convention.
LynnCon.
Yeah.
And then I know people can see your Ignite Minneapolis. You gave a talk this past year.
Yep.
About your experience on the PBS Colonial House show.
Yep.
And so you tied that into sort of like practical advice for living your life.
Living your life, yeah. Living in this modern world.
Right, but it was fun to have, this sort of tech-focused person speaking to get your hands dirty.
Yeah.
Get out in the world.
Yeah. And I love that the sort of the one slide out of the show that keeps getting circulated is the poop in a hole slide, so proud moment in my life.
It's what connects us all.
Yeah.
Pooping.
Yeah.
Brings the world
Everyone
together.
does it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for your time, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Well, here we are again, It's always such a pleasure. Remember when you tried to kill me twice?